Thank you. Jan is not able to join us tonight, and Tashidra will not be here for the work session, but will be here for the board meeting. Do you have any other announcements? Okay. That being said, then we will move to item 4, items for discussion. Item 4.1, discussion regarding proposed amendments to Village Ordinance 1.07. Bill Chang is going to walk us through the materials that were in the packet.
All right, thank you. So you have this attached as part of the packet. These are the proposed changes to section 1.07 having to do with village board meetings and order of business. And as we discussed at the last meeting, we really, as Al and I walked through this, wanted to provide language that would update the section of the code to make it more conductive of what the current practice is and also be then in compliance with the current case law. So we did make some changes here. This first change is in regards to the location or place of meetings. The reason for this change is, as you know, we do have some annual training, and which I've heard from some members stating that, you know, can we have meetings outside of Village Hall? And so we clarified that business conducted needs to happen here, but things such as trainings or non-business items can happen outside the village. The next item here, you'll see the cross out for health and safety reasons. This is having to do with video conferencing or virtual meetings. I believe when this was added, it was during the pandemic. But now, as we've learned to use virtual meetings, we find that that's convenient in some situations. And so we didn't want to limit ourselves for health and safety reasons only. So in subsection 2 is the order of business. We went through here and clarified that presentations, we left that following public comment section. And to clarify, we clarified the definition of special presentations down below. These are intended to be presentations that are of interest to the village board. So a third party that may take more than, say, 3 minutes, that is educational to the board. They can come in and present, just like this evening. We're going to have a presentation from Cobblestone and the presentation from Ellers to the board before that item comes up. You'll also see, so we define that here in what is sub 2M sub C. And then down below under general rules, and this is at the moment of presentation and discussion right during that agenda item. We did make or add some language to allow for staff and our consultants, whether it's the attorney, engineer, et cetera, to present on an item before you make a motion on it. The way that it was written before required for a motion and a second before it could even be discussed. And so we just clarified that. And then we left the rest of the ordinance alone. And so we are in a format here that we would recommend moving forward to actually drafting the ordinance, and we would then bring that ordinance language to you at the next meeting. So this would be the chance and your opportunity to make any further changes to this section if you desire to do so.
All right. Are there questions or comments? Bill?
Yeah, Bill, you didn't touch on that last subject where you added by an appropriate motion or carried by a majority vote. My understanding is a motion and a second can be withdrawn before it's stated by the presiding officer. After it's been stated there's been a motion and a second, it would require the board to vote whether to allow it to withdraw? Does that language cover that?
No, this would overrule that Robert's rule that you're talking about. The board has never required that the motion actually be stated by the chair before it's voted on. So this basically says that it can only be withdrawn by the person who made the motion and the second.
It wouldn't need a vote. It says or. Why would you have or in there then?
So that somebody could move to amend the motion that's been made.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, Jim.
Up in the beginning of this, you were talking about the virtual and the in-person. I mean, I feel like it's covered, but I'd say like a hybrid or say even tonight, if somebody's gone and calling in, are we covered in what I would call a hybrid?
Yes, yeah, I think the language about video conferencing covers, because when we post it as a in-person meeting or a virtual meeting. There's no hybrid option, right? In that situation, we would have it here and then have simply the option to virtual in.
Other comments or questions? Okay. If not, Bill, do you need anything else from us?
If there's no additional comments, like I said, we'll prepare the ordinance to be adopted at the next meeting.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on then to, excuse me, discussion regarding annual village board training. Bill's going to lead this discussion.
Okay, so I don't have any materials in the packet for this. This is purely intended to be a discussion with you, the village board. So as you know, I believe last year we held our first annual training. It's an opportunity pursuant to our strategic plan to address issues of civility and being able to work together in order to improve kind of the process that we have as a village board. I did receive, I sent out surveys and received survey responses after that initial training. And so I do have those, and in planning for this, I do want to have a discussion and conversation with you because this training is your training, right? And so I want to make sure that it's worthwhile for you. So a lot of different ways that we can do this. We've heard at the last meeting, talks about efficiencies of meetings, Robert's rules. We've given, considering the issues with social media, that's a training opportunity. We've talked almost every year since I've been here about civility and communications, et cetera. I don't know if we want to rehash that at this point, or if we want to go in a different direction. I'm kind of open at this time. What I like to do is kind of determine if there's a subject area that this board is interested in, if you're interested in some kind of training at all. And then secondly, probably the challenging part of my job is scheduling all of you guys to be able to meet at one time for a specific training session. So if you remember last time, we sent out a doodle poll and we kind of moved them back into the committee of the whole, open to doing that. Now we are starting to get crunched for time as we start planning May, June, July. I think our meetings in May is already packed as far as work sessions. And then June, we're starting budget. So
I was objecting.
I had to get that in there because Carol challenged me this week. So so I'll open it up and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. But yeah, this is intended just to generate some discussion.
Okay, let's hear from anyone who has a thought on things they'd like to or might not like to do? Not all at once. Okay. Jim?
I'm personally interested in Robert's Rules of Order. I don't know if necessarily it's a good topic for the annual village board training, but I'm hoping to get to some classes. I know some other people did. If or when we do it, I think it should be done outside of the village hall. I know there's different other, it's like we used Hooper before. I don't know if there's other businesses that we can use their conference rooms, but I think it's nice to have I guess it's a place outside of here.
Okay. Others? Rebecca?
Me. I like the idea about the Robert's Rules. I also, I'm thinking about it. And nothing is specifically coming to mind right at this particular moment, but maybe look through and think about some of the things we've had to do over the past couple of years where maybe there was something where people weren't always really fully understanding the process or like, for instance, I'm going to use TIF just because everybody is always up in the air, all over the place on TIF. And I'm not necessarily saying that should be the topic. But I don't know if there's something you have seen us struggle with, maybe a training on what, so that we can better understand maybe something we've struggled with in the past. I can't, and like I said, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head because I wasn't really thinking about this beforehand, so.
I know Al has done some really good trainings on TIF for some audiences. And I never object to us all hearing from the same source information on a topic like that. Other topics that come to mind? Yes, Jim.
Rebecca jogged my memory, not necessarily something that we've talked about a whole lot, but there's the traditional zoning that we're gonna need to get into at some point. I mean, is that something maybe Mark could come and give us examples, or if there's other experts to get us thinking in that direction?
Did you hear? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think these are all good ideas. I think keep them coming. So, you know, to me, there's kind of two different categories of subjects here. One is addressing more technical items like the traditional neighborhoods and zoning, TIF, affordable housing, and we can put together a series of training sessions for those. We'd still like to know what you're interested in so that we can get that to you. You know, and that's kind of one course. The other is really, you know, addressing something that will help the board get to a better process. And I think Rebecca, you kind of hit on that. What do we as a board struggle with? Whether it's you know, I'm just going to use the example from last time, you know, where we had talked about, you know, the public comment process. You know, how does that look like? We've talked about engage the forest and the internal communications policy. Do we want to talk about how do those two play together? And, you know, what is the overall village strategy on communications per se? How do other communities do it? You know, that, you know, introduces things like decorum and civility within the boardroom. And so, again, these are a lot of the kind of the rabbit holes that we can go down. It can be as much or as little as, you know, I have your attention for, right? And so, but understanding that as this is going on, we still have business to carry out for the village. And we're always kind of fighting for time to get in front of you. So just, I want to make sure that what we're planning is getting the most impact from you. It's most impactful to you as we go through this process. So I know I'm just, putting this on you now, but let me know whether through email or otherwise, so we can keep the conversation going. Again, what I am concerned about is if we're gonna bring in the speaker, say on Robert's Rules, I need some time to schedule that because everyone's busy. And then place and location, and then coordinating that with all of your schedules. Is the intention here to, try to hold it during a work session time where you've already reserved it? If that's the case, then we can block out one, and that we can have that training held at a different location, say, and then work from there. So there's a lot of different ways, but I need to know if that's the preference of this board. We'll keep it as that, and we'll plan around that.
Okay. I think it's difficult. I mean, I know Rebecca and Jim have difficult work schedules to work around. So, daytime stuff during the week becomes difficult. Weekends are hard because they're usually pretty heavily scheduled, some, with travel and things. So I just know how difficult it is for you to get us on time. So it almost then falls to this kind of work session. And maybe there's a way for us to back it up an hour. So if we knew in advance, for instance, Rebecca, could you come an hour earlier if
I
it,
can usually work a little extra to be able to get off a little early. If we do it on a day when I'm normally remote anyway, it's easier to do that because then I don't have to leave work quite as early. Tuesdays and Thursdays are the
yeah,
days.
that's what okay.
But my Thursdays are more flexible because I only technically I only need that one day a month. But yeah, I can be, as long as it's not too early, because I've got all my PTO tied up. But yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking, and I had to double check, so if we can find a place in the Village of DeForest, I think what we can do is potentially hold training or the work session 30 minutes early, kind of run into, provide some time for training, and then some, socialization or break in between. And then we can potentially still hold the village board meeting as long as it's in the village boundaries, at the same location, at that time. And so we'll jump from one to another. Because we still have, because the issue is that even though we have the training, if we have the training during our work session or a Wednesday, we still have to contend with having a village board meeting. Unless we move away from the day of a village board meeting.
And that gets a little more difficult, like for her. I don't know about Jim, with your work schedule, what kind of flexibility you have. So,
Go ahead and then I'll
I was just gonna say, I have flexibility at the end of the day. I just depends a lot on if I have a meeting or not. But if I know a few weeks out or a week out, hopefully I can just work earlier than the day.
You mentioned possibly having something off-site within the boundaries of the village and then doing the village board meeting there as well. And the first thing that came to mind was, okay, what about our virtual? And people who typically, because there's a number of folks who do regularly attend virtually. At least I normally see them on there. So that would be my only concern about the virtual aspect of our board meeting and being able to record it like we normally do. If we could do that, then I don't have a problem. But
well, and maybe we could do something as simple as go to the room we went to before. That room worked just fine last time at the, maybe Reese would let us rent it. And, then we just would have to come over here for the board meeting. I also worry about people who want to attend the board meeting and, not finding where we are. So those are things we can work out as we go forward.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, as long as we're building enough time to get back to the village board to hold the meeting, that's perfectly fine. If you're saying, if we want to do like a conference room at Hooper, just as an example, at, 4:30 or 4 o'clock and, run into then, 5:30 and give us enough time to get back here. Just know that we're gonna be running kind of back and forth, so.
And I would prefer not to go that far away. I'll just put my 2 cents in an open meeting here because it's just too pressure filled. I think if we're close by, we can walk over here, or frankly, if we're in this room, we can make it work. I just not sure if we're gonna do it in our work session time, if an offsite is gonna work. Just my thought. We can work that out, though. I may be in the minority there. I don't know. This is going to be a nice room anyway. I hear we're getting new desks in May. So. Nice. Okay. Well, send anything you have in terms of thoughts to Bill. And then we'll look at times and dates.
Yeah, so again, just, think about, I think that the 2 primary items here in regards to scheduling, I'll take all the subjects that you have on mine and we'll build that. But as far as scheduling, first and foremost, if it's going to be the same time as our work sessions, then we're very limited to areas, locations that we can go. If we can make room in our schedule and we can agree that it's a different day, then we're a little bit more flexible as to location. So just keep that in mind and email me your preference. Thank you.
I also remind you that Big Joe's has a great training room. So, all right, we will move on then. I just have to uncover my agenda. Department updates. We're going to go through these and we've been kind of rushed in the last couple of meetings. So you're going to have the opportunity to make up for it tonight. So I would ask Bill for any administration update.
Yeah, so first one here, homestead addition plat did get recorded. I know some of you are very interested in that. That's 3 years in the making. And then secondly, I just want to provide an update in regards to the legislative proposal for tax increment district number 9. I had sent an email stating that a legislation was proposed. That's Assembly Bill 137. And then it's a companion bill is the Senate Bill 133. The AB 137 did go to committee, the Assembly Committee on Local Government. That did pass unanimously in that committee. And so as of right now, we are waiting for a public hearing in the Senate committee. And hopefully we'll get a date soon here. Once it's done there, it'll go back to the general floor and go along its process. So if it does move through that process and it is approved, there are additional steps that we do have to go here to take on here as a village. First and foremost would be an amendment to the tax increment district plan, and then eventually a negotiation as to a potential agreement with the developer there for that public infrastructure improvement. And that's going to be a process that this village board would have to go through. So that's the current situation right now. Nothing at this moment for the village board to do as we continue to work through that process. Rebecca, you have a question?
Very quick question. Can you keep us posted as to when this public hearing happens so that hopefully before it happens?
Yeah, I can do, so usually we hear about a week out, so.
Okay. Finance update, Carol? All right. Police Department update, Chief Olson, is he online? All right. Judd Blau, Public Services update.
So there will be new desks being installed. We'll do that next Wednesday. We'll start that process. Probably a day, 2 days maybe to get those installed. But when you come back, the monitors will be under the desk, so there's no hiding behind monitors, and you'll have a all new nice dais in here to work from, which is exciting. We had bids open today for Highway V. It should come in right at price. Yesterday, we were informed that we actually got the grant for carbon reduction from the state of Wisconsin for the Highway V project, but we're not to expend any money before we got to use the grant. So I don't know. I've reached out to DOT to see if we can somehow work together to use that grant. So the last we knew, that grant was dead and they weren't applying it because the federal regulations had changed. And then I was surprised that we got that email yesterday saying, hey, surprise, you have it. And I'm like, well, we're having the bid opening tomorrow. So more to come on that, but we will certainly try to see if we can maximize those dollars to help us offset. So I have more free money, and Carol can't say anything. Tomorrow night, Trouts Unlimited was coming to get a tour with us. They're becoming a really nice partner with us, right? So they gave their largest donation ever to us for the stream bank enhancement of $17,000. And they're really taking a vested interest and want to come out. So Greg and I are going to give them a tour of the Yahara River, the Upper Yahara River trail, corridor, all that stuff. So that'll be exciting. It'll be about 3:30.
Judd, were you saying trout or trucks?
Trouts Unlimited.
Wait, that's
Yep.
what I thought.
Not trucks. That's Bill's area. F-450s. We're just the trouts, the fish. Resurfacing projects got started, so you may have seen some curb work happening, especially down on Stevenson and Burton. I can never remember Burton name. Innovation Drive will be tomorrow, and then probably the last week of April, early May will be when they start to peel the asphalt off, the mill it or pulverize it, and then come back and pave. So those resurfacing projects are coming along good. And then you may have seen last week, we had chainsaw safety training for 2 days at behind Baki Chiropractic and the dental office over there. I just want to say my guys do tremendous work. And it was really cool to watch a lot of guys who've done a lot of chainsawing in their careers here really embrace learning new techniques, opportunity, right? And then they really work together, right? So it was very neat to watch the cohesiveness of our team, right? So we're pretty lucky to have the guys that are here. As I said, they did great work. They learned new things, implemented them, and I think we'll be better off for it. So that training was very well received, so.
We noticed there was a lot of brush down, a lot of small trees and things. Is that all going to be pulled out of there? Or?
Yep. So a lot of that was done by us, and then Quercus has been doing some stuff in there, but there were some opportunities for us to fell some trees in there, learn some different techniques. And we'll be continuing to clean that up as we move towards upgrading that into potentially a usable park for us. And we may have, Greg had an idea that we may be looking to implement as well that we'll share when the time's right for other ways to dispose of that wood.
Good.
Thanks.
All right. Alex, Community Development.
You should all received an email this afternoon, I think, about a neighborhood meeting for the development at the Holm Center. That'll be tomorrow, 6 o'clock at the library. Callie, I believe, has a quorum noticed if you want to show up. Otherwise, I don't know what their turnout will be, but we did get people stopping in here to ask questions about it at Village Hall too. Last week, had the opportunity to present as part of a WEDA webinar on T-Grant and shared a little bit about the Quick Trip project. So it was nice to get that development, some exposure throughout the state. And then lastly, you may have seen the governor made an announcement on the WEDC grants that I talked about the last time. And I know some small business owners have been reaching out, so they may reach out to you. If they do, just point in my direction.
Okay, Judd.
Something came back to mind. Greg's gonna be scooting here in a little bit. There's a public information meeting at Windsor Town Hall for Highway CV project. That's from 6 to 8 tonight. And we did schedule a public information meeting for May 7th. That will be held here. It's a Wednesday night. From 5 to 5:30 to, well, 5 to 7, but 5:30 will be the presentation. That's for Vinburn Road, and then the Vinburn Road HISSIP grant. So that information will be going out to residents. But I wanted to remind you that, or give you that information now so you weren't aware of it at the very first meeting of May, right? So May 7th, if you're welcome to come. We will be scheduling an additional public information meeting for Holum. We didn't want to bundle that in with Vinburn because they're two separate projects and have different impacts on folks, but we're working ahead on that.
Bill?
Can you talk about the timing for those two projects, just to make clear, because we're having those informational meetings a year ahead of time, right?
Yeah, so they're state projects, right? They're grants from the state that are helping us facilitate those. So with that, we're following that process. So we're at, so with the HISSIP grant, we're over the 30% threshold, edging close to getting to the 60% mark with that. So they're going to lead that HISSIP grant will lead the public information meeting on May 7th. But because we're doing Vinburn at the same time, this will all happen in 2027. We might as well have that information, right? It's really going to affect, we're going to notify people from Liberty Land, basically road, south through Yorktown from Main Street. So all of those folks are going to really be impacted, as we're not going to allow any local traffic. It'll only, no through traffic for sure on Vinburn, right? So the people south of Vinburn are going to have to cross north and come through Yorktown, or the folks at Rumley Run would have to be on Vinburn for a bit to get to southbound to get to where they need to go, right? So there'll be impacts to the community for that. So that'll be in 27. Holum Street is expected, is slated to happen in 28. So there's benchmarks we have to hit for each of these grant funded projects. And so that's why we're working out ahead of these things in case there's any land acquisition things. We have the time and resources to get those accomplished and followed by state and federal guidelines. Yeah, so HISSIP is the intersection improvement, right? So we'll be taking the stop signs down at Club 51 and signalizing that intersection. That's that highway safety improvement grant, so.
And how long will Vinburn take? I mean, that's a real heavily used street.
It'll probably be 3 months.
Okay.
It's a full reconstruction, right? We're adding curb, gutter, storm. There'll be a little utility work. There'll be an addition of some, most of that road has trail and or sidewalk segments. There'll be one other additional portion of that will have that, but yeah, it'll be an impact for our community members and they'll have to make do, right? So.
Okay, yes, Rebecca.
Boy, I'll get this out. Club 51.
Yep.
How are they gonna be impacted? Are they gonna be able to conduct business, or are they gonna have a way to get their customers in there?
What's that? They'd probably come off Northtown through there, right? They'll have to be mindful of it to get into Club 51, and we can't totally block them out of there. But we'll be replacing that guardrail there with additional guardrails because there's a drop there and it provides some safety for that building. But no, they'll be open, but they'll have some impacts, I'm sure.
People who go to Club 51.
Yeah, the Millionaires Club will find their way there.
All right. The one other thing I wanted to just mention to you two is I've gotten calls from two people on Dennis Drive who are wondering how they're going to get in and out. And I told them that you were working on grabbling a back way out for them, but those questions have started to come up already, so.
You certainly can send them to Greg or I. We're happy to answer them. And yeah, that we have the agreement with Norm Danielson done, so we'll get in there when that work starts.
I did give him your number, Judd. I love to do that, so. All right. Were you done, Alex? Okay. Administrative services update, Callie.
I just have one thing to update. Typically once a month, we mail out a new resident packet to anybody that has moved into the community or into the village. It's a lot of paper and a lot of postage that it's taking to send it. So our team decided that it might be better to do it more of a online option. So Stacy helped us build a Engage DeForest page for new residents that has information about the water utility, dog licensing, elections, public services, the waste yard, curbside services, building permits, park rentals, rec programs, special events, and the trail information. It also has all the contacts to the community center, and Bill is pulling it up right now. So it also is helpful or useful information that current residents need. So we thought this would be a good way to get everybody to have the information that they need. So that is it. We will also be sending a new letter to any new residents, informing them of the webpage with a QR code, and also letting them know if they did prefer that information on paper or printed to let us know, and we can get a copy of it out to them, just so we're not excluding anybody that maybe doesn't use the internet. So that is our new project. We will be sending out our first round in the beginning of May.
How do you identify new residents? Is it when people sign up for water or, okay.
Yep, so Penny gets a list to Simone monthly on anybody that has started up new water service. And it's more and more. It costs us about a little over $1 to send the packet out. And with all of the development going on, the price goes up pretty quick because there's more and more people that we have to send it to. So this helps get those prices down.
Good. Other questions on that? That's a great service. I'm glad to know that's there. All right. Recreation and community enrichment, Reese?
Yeah, so we're getting the AC started up. We have our first tournament April 26th and 27th. We've been doing some staff trainings out there because there have been a couple high school events. They had a quad this last weekend. They have another one this weekend. So it's a nice opportunity for us to get our staff out there and familiar with the equipment and reminding them of how to use the equipment before our first big tournament. And it helps us also get all of our hiccups out, so that's nice. Youth soccer started. It's been a little chilly. I think Mother Nature is not quite sure decided if she wants to be spring yet. So we're looking forward to it being a little warmer, and I think the parents are also. I don't think the kids care. On Monday, we are hosting, it's no school for the school district. We're doing a teddy bear tea party with Cornerstone. So we're partnering with them. And it's for like grandparents and kids. I think they're going to be planting some flowers and getting a little Polaroid picture to take home with them. And we'll have a little like treats and juices to have. So we're excited to host that for the first time. We have a total of 23 participants for it. and hoping that this might be something that we can do on an annual basis with them. And then I know I mentioned this last meeting too, but we're hosting a re-gear event on April 26th. So we're having an opportunity for the public to be able to bring in lightly used equipment and either exchange it based off of a voucher or pay for significantly cheaper equipment for their kids.
Good, good. Questions of any of the updates? Okay, thank you. Well, we got through this one in a good stead today, so I would, unless there's other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll adjourn and reconvene at 6 PM for our village board meeting. Ask Colleen to lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Announcements. I don't have any new ones other than we note that Jan is not able to be with us. On the consent agenda, before we entertain a motion to approve, we will pull out item 5.2 because there was a change to that resolution. You received a printed copy from Bill before the work session meeting, and so we'll deal with that separately. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.2, Resolution 2025-040, a resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a stormwater facility agreement. Before we entertain a motion to approve, Bill, do you want to talk about the change and the resolution?
Yeah, so we had a couple changes to this resolution and it was sent by email to you today and then included in the packet. This version that's in the packet right now is the updated version, which makes some corrections to the timing of when the facility will be constructed. And then also adds in the authorization for the village administrator to accept and record the stormwater and drainage easements. There was some verbiage change in there. The red line was sent as part of the email. I don't have a copy of the red line with me, so I apologize for that off my head. I wanted to provide you an opportunity to ask questions instead of it being in the consent agenda.
Okay. Any questions on this?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments, questions, or discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. We will move on to public appearances. And I have one slip. Is there only the one, Callie? All right. Mark Berglund, please come to the table and use the mic and identify yourself. And you'll remember you have to pull the mic a little bit close to you.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Mark Berglund. I reside at 6205 Williamsburg Way, apartment 114. What I'm calling, or what I'm coming to address you on is an incident that occurred last week. The village staff had posted up a reminder, friendly reminder, I think was the term they used, that temporary signage after an election should get cleared out and cleaned up. And the very first comment to that reminder was from a village trustee wondering whether there was a First Amendment issue with removing political signs in the village. The village post cites your village ordinance on removal of temporary signs. And I weighed in because that was my understanding, is that it's a state law. If not a state law, certainly I can't think of another place I've ever been in the state of Wisconsin where you don't clear up temporary signs out of roads. And so a couple of posts exchanged with the trustee was finished up about 11:30 that night with a picture of my home being posted on an official Village of DeForest post. And I was troubled from the start on it, in that, number one, somebody's trying to do their job for the village. Somebody's getting paid to create the content. Somebody's doing their job so village crews don't have to go out and remove the signs if they're in the way. It is troubling that a trustee would weigh in on it, because when one trustee were to ever weigh in on your official village post, that would prevent any of the rest of you from coming in on that, because that would then create a walking quorum and a violation of the state open meetings law. And so it seemed problematic to me on a couple levels that a village trustee would decide that was the post that they needed to weigh in on somebody's work and just creating that situation. But I guess most troubled by the fact that someone would post a picture of my apartment on that post. There's been 3 murders in the state of Wisconsin this year with young kids who got wrapped up in right-wing white supremacy kind of stuff. And I live alone. I live in an apartment. If you looked at the picture, you see my front door right there. And so I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. And whether that is a formal or informal agreement among you, I hope
Mark, you're
that you will
3 minutes are up.
consider restricting your comments off of Village of DeForest official posts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. Is there anybody else, either online or sitting in the audience, that wants to appear during public appearances? Okay. If not, we will move on and we will go to presentations. We have the Cobblestone Hotel Development LLC for a hotel development in tax incremental district number 8. Hi, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Anna Jakubik, and I am the Vice President of Development for Cobblestone Hotels and Brymark Builders. Thank you for having me. If you haven't heard this presentation before, Cobblestone Hotels, we are a hotel franchise headquartered in Neenah, Wisconsin, up by Appleton and the Fox Cities, and we specialize in building upscale lodging for small town America. So we are proposing in DeForest a 62-room hotel, our Main Street prototype, which looks very similar to the one I have here in the picture. This would include both our standard and extended stay rooms. So in this building in particular, it includes 10 of our extended stays, and I have pictures to show what that looks like, but it's basically 2 rooms. It has a full kitchen, full refrigerator, dishwasher, and the bed is separated from the living space, of a couch and a sitting area. This hotel also includes hot breakfast for guests, Seattle's best coffee, a boardroom that can get rented out for meetings, showers, you name it, guest laundry, fitness room, and an indoor pool. So why Cobblestone? We are 3 companies. So we're Cobblestone Hotels, which is a franchise. We also own Brymark Builders, which is a general contracting company. We only build Cobblestone hotels, no other brand. And then we own a hotel management company as well, which is SHG, stands for Slate Hospitality Group. So because we're those 3 parts, which no other hotel franchise offers, we have flexibility. So we want to build what makes sense for this community. Again, we have flexibility on how many rooms we can build. We don't have your typical prototype of it needs to fit, you know, in our 80-room model. We want to build what makes sense. So that was based on a feasibility study that was done for this community. And then also with the customization of the exterior. So we have that flexibility to add or make it colors that make sense for this community, whether that's brick or stone or whatever colors come into play. We also like to make these community projects. So we'll work with the local historical society or library and include images from DeForest that have history. And that's going to be all the artwork in the hotel. That's included in the lobby. It'll be one wall will be a mural, a black and white image of, again, something that's historic to the community. And then all of the artwork in the guest rooms will be local to the community as well. And it gives it more of that boutique feel and again, the community pride. Like I said, we're Wisconsin based. And then Jessica Yunker with Core Distinction Group is who was involved in that feasibility study. So our founder, Brian Wogernes, created this brand. He was a franchisee of other brands that I'm sure we're all familiar with here. He knew what he liked and what he didn't like being a franchisee, and he really had no intention of building a franchise. The first Cobblestone Hotel was built in Clintonville, Wisconsin. And then that was in 2007, January of 2007. Brillion, Wisconsin was the next one, Durand. And then this whole concept of providing upscale lodging for small town America really took off. In most cases, when you go to smaller communities, your only option is either economy or a Airbnb type of stay, or you're driving 20, 30 minutes to the next community over to find a nicer hotel. So we have the experience, again, being franchisees of the other brands, coming with the construction and the management. We oversee about 70 Cobblestones that we manage, and we're all in one office. So Cobblestone Hotels, Brymark Builders, and then SHG, we all work out of one office. So it's easier to get decisions. We're not having to, you know, call a 1-800 number. Again, we're local to Wisconsin. We have all the technology you would expect with a true hotel franchise. Stay in Touch is our property management system, and then we have access to all of the online booking third-party companies. And then with that being said too, Cobblestone Hotels, we really stride on making sure that our guests have the same experience in any Cobblestone, whether they're staying in DeForest or in Wickenburg, Arizona. We want to make sure that that experience is the same throughout. So we provide quality assurance checks for all of our properties. They do come unannounced to make sure that the brand is up to our standard. We would hire, so with SHG, our management company, overseeing the operations, everything would be hired locally. So we would look for a local general manager, bring them up to our office in Neenah and do a 5-day training program. We call it CARE training, teaching them about the operations of Cobblestone and everything that comes along with our systems. And then that gets overseen too by a regional manager. We have a team of regionals that each have about 8 to 10 properties. So it's being taken care of in part of our family. And again, we're headquartered in Neenah, so this isn't too far away from us. And then I touched on this, Cobblestone Hotels, Brymark Builders, SHG. These are the 3 companies. And then we became, I shared that 2007 was our first Cobblestone, but we became a franchise in 2012. Currently, we're in 28 states and we have 168 properties open or under construction. And then these are some of the images that I just wanted to share, a couple different properties so you can see what I mean about the flexibility on what we have and what we can build and what the village would want to see. So there's the brick, the stone. You can see that there's some variation with colors. And again, this really came down to these communities and their planning commissions and what they wanted to see and what they wanted included. So we really pay attention to that. This is in Arizona, just showing you the different variations of our properties. Here's that boardroom that I touched on. So those tables, if you would, can come together and make one long table, or they can be separated. They can be rented out by the community. And again, like I said, they get rented for birthday parties, you name it. There's businesses, many different uses. There's a vending store included in the hotel, which is what you see there. This would include a pool and then a fitness center. And then there's a picture of the extended stays that I shared. Again, those are nice to have for trades, families, weddings, parties like to rent those rooms out. So there's many different uses. The suites is what you see in the bottom right corner there, and it has that dividing wall, and that's broken out into both kings and double queens. And then what you don't see is there's another TV over here. It just adds nice separation for, again, families, business travelers. It really appeals to all different guests in the market. And then that pull-out couch converts into another bed. So it could be a double queen and then an additional pull-out, which would provide 3 beds in the room. And that's all I have. So any questions? Am I able to open up for questions?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Are there questions? Well, I see hands. Rebecca?
Hi.
I'm very excited to see you back
Thank
with
you.
us.
I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, I think I prefer this new location.
Great.
From the last one. But the one question I had, it's not a deal killer for me, but I just want to, are you thinking about doing the chop house or not?
It's up to the investor if they want to include that right now. I know it's a want by a lot of communities. The struggle we have right now is the restaurant space is very tough, and we
Okay.
make that very clear. It's just the operations of it, the margins are small. It's more overall cost. So it's up to the investor if they want to include that right now. So right now, he's not looking at doing that.
Okay.
But I can certainly bring up that there is a request from the village if I need to.
Like, I guess my other kind of a tag onto that would be, let's say you didn't have it at this point in time, would there be that possibility of building it onto it at some point? Or would that, just because of the nature of the property and?
Probably not. So the way our buildings are set up is there is room to expand additional rooms included. I don't know if the restaurant would be able to, because with the grill and everything, I would assume, yeah. But I can find out. I've never been asked that before.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know.
Okay.
I'm assuming probably not, but doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. Yep, thank
I
you.
noticed, Bill, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks for coming. There's been a lot of talk lately about affordability of housing for workers. And this feasibility study is pretty extensive, goes into demographics and, 10-mile radius, 1-mile radius. I found that very interesting. Would any of the people that work at this hotel be able to live in DeForest?
Live in DeForest or live in,
DeForest.
as the employees? They
Yes.
would all be hired local, correct. So all, the general manager, the housekeepers, all of that would be hired, the front desk, they would all be hired locally.
Okay, so they'd be able to live in DeForest and work here.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Other questions, Jim?
I'll say I got 2 comments as far as the site layout. I know you still have to get into that. I think what you're showing now is a concept, so I'm just curious if you've thought of these couple things. I like the whole idea. One thing I noticed, you have the patio say, to the west. And I think that could be good, say, for a screening of the sound from the interstate. But I also think that the patio to the east could be more inviting. And I wonder if you've thought that through. And I think for me, I would lean towards having it to the east, just to be
Okay.
more visual, but that's a business marketing thing for you. So please consider that. And the other thing that I want to mention is in interstate study that they're proposing in that plan that I think is approved, but that there's a recreational path along the north side of 19, so on the south side of your property. And I personally would like to see some sort of sidewalk connection to that future path. So
Okay,
if that could be part of your concept
Sure.
of how that connection would be done in the future.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Bill, you look like you were trying to say something, or you just,
I'm just thinking. So just so that everyone is on the same page here, this presentation correlates with item 8.1, which is discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-041, having to do with development agreement for this project. Just remarks on site plan development, et cetera. They have not gone through that process yet, so that will be coming before the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we're very early on in the concept stage here. As historically we've done in the past, we like to provide the presentation of the concept, have the discussion in regards to the development agreement and potential TIF and financing. And then from there, if all checks out, then the developers then move to that entitlement process. So generally that's how we've done things here, to check those boxes. So there's going to be ample opportunity to have those conversations at a later point.
and I just wanted to echo everyone's positive comments. I'm very excited to have the hotel and to have Cobblestone. We'd love to see a chop house, and I've mentioned that before. But we also really like the idea of having this hotel available. We just don't have that resource here. So this is wonderful.
Thank you.
So, thank you. All right, well, we will move on if there are no other questions, but thank you for sharing. Okay. We will go to item 7.2, presentation from Ellers regarding the 2025 Village of DeForest issuance of general obligation promissory notes. Carol, you want to help with that?
Yeah, so Kayla Thorpe is here from Ellers, well, virtually, she's here to walk you through the pre-sale report for the borrowing for this year. But I thought before I turn it over to her, I would just walk you through the 2 pages I left on your desk. In the fall, so several months ago, as part of the budget, you had a capital improvement plan that we looked over, and the page you have in front of you that has sort of the blue section on top and the green section on the bottom, that is the complete list of everything that we thought we might be doing in 2025, and that shows the total cost of the projects. Then in the green section down below, it shows where we might be getting some revenues from other sources, and then it leaves you at the bottom with what we thought we might need to borrow. Now, again, this was what we were thinking last September, and a lot of things change over the course of a few months. So the other page I gave you is kind of where we're at today in terms of what we think we will attempt to borrow here. I've taken a few things out and pulled them out to the right and showed the fact that there are a few projects within the TIF districts that just aren't quite ready to move forward yet. So we aren't going to borrow for those right now. They may come up later in the year, but for now, we're going to just move those out and hold on to that idea. And as far as the other numbers, we've gotten some bids in. So some of the numbers are just updated because the bids have come in different than what we originally anticipated. In some cases, we increased the amount of the project because we didn't think we were going to get the grant that we applied for. So we had to increase the amount. Then we turned around, we had some money left over from last year and we applied that to the borrowing so that we could borrow less. So there's lots of things that have moved and changed, but for the most part, the list of projects has stayed the same.
So these are projects you did approve as part of the plan last fall. These are, for the most part, just updated numbers. So with that, we will let Kayla take over and walk you through the pre-sale reports.
Thank you very much. And I will share my screen if that's okay. To share the pre-sale report. Do you all see the pre-sale report on my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing me to attend virtually. As you all are aware, my name is Kayla Thorpe. I am the village's financial advisor here with Ellers, working on the general obligation notes series 2025A. And like Carol had run through, we've downsized this a number of times throughout this preparation process to really get a handle on what the actual project costs are going to be, and so that we're not over issuing debt at any one point in time. This is for projects within the capital improvement plan, but also within to districts 2, 5, 6, and 9. Additionally, there are portions of this debt
Sorry,
that will be.
Kayla, can I interrupt you just for one
Sure.
moment? I think there are multiple people sharing right now. We are not seeing your screen on the Zoom portion.
How about that?
Can you try to reshare your screen now, please?
Yep.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Just fine.
And then there will be additional revenues to offset the levy of capital project or water, sewer, and stormwater utility revenues as well. A lot of what is contained within the pre-sale report is some legal requirements that we must notify you all, in addition to what Corals and Brady have notified you all. And then also just some pertinent information to be aware of. For those of you that are new to the village board, new to the village, or not necessarily been through a debt issuance process before, state statute limits any municipality's debt to 5% of their equalized value at any time. So part of our preparation process is we test that on a current debt basis, and then where will this debt put us in your total debt capacity? And then we also test that the offsetting revenues have the ability to pay for this debt as well. So a lot of that is outlined in this plan, and I'll walk through it, but feel free to stop me at any time if there's questions. The village only issues debt on a 10-year basis, primarily on a 10-year basis. And so all of these notes are structured on a level principal payment over that 10 years, and will mature in 2026 through 2035, with interest payments being due every 6 months, and then one principal payment at the end of the annual year. We are designating these as bank qualified. That means that it targets these to be a traditionally lesser interest rates. They're more favorable to be bank qualified because that means the municipality is borrowing under $10 million in an annual year. I'll do a market update as of what we know as of today. But traditionally in the last 6 months, we've seen that bank qualified rates and non-bank qualified rates have been relatively similar. And so this is not a large point of discussion as it used to be in prior years, but still we're designating these as bank qualified. The village is rated by Moody's Investor Service and currently has a AA2 bond rating. We have scheduled a bond rating call for May 5th, in which we fully anticipate that the village's rating will be affirmed and recommended for this issuance. These notes will be sold on a competitive basis, meaning it's kind of open to bids to the public market. And we will receive bids on May 21st, at which if the parameters are met by the lowest bid, then it authorizes either Carol or Bill to accept the bid on the village's behalf. So what the resolution you are going to adopt today is setting those parameters for what the bids must fall in to be awarded by the village at the end. Those parameters are the issue size of not to exceed $7,665,000, a maximum bid of 108% of the par, a minimum bid of 98.75% of par. And what those percentages mean, it really has the fluctuation of, we've built in an underwriter's discount, which is basically the underwriter's spread and take of profit before they turn and sell these bonds on the secondary market. And so we limit the threshold in which we'll accept their kind of cut of the pie of this. and then a maximum true interest cost of 4.5%. We'll also not allow any maturities to fluctuate more than $450,000 than what we are showing you in this presale report. And that really limits any fluctuations that may have on the property tax levy. So kind of reviewing the schedule, this April date has obviously changed because we're reviewing the presale report today and it's April 15th. We have a conference with Moody's Rating Service on May 5th. After that, we will distribute the official statement, which is kind of the offering document for the municipality or the prospectus. And that will go out to the system on May 13th. That allows all of the interested bidders to kind of get a deep dive into not only the demographic and diversity of the community, but also the financial standing of the village. It contains a number of prior years audit. It contains a number of budgets and large employers and kind of the breakup of owner occupied housing. So it's really an open book into the village as a whole to reassure that our investors that they are purchasing secured debt. We will be accepting those bids, like I mentioned, on May 21st. And if they fit within the parameters, either Carol or Bill will be able to award those on the village's behalf. And then we will be closing on the notes, meaning the village will actually receive the funds on June 11th. So starting to review the actual financials, we always start with the capital projects list. And that's that kind of exhaustive project list that you all went through as part of your budgeting process. And now it's reaffirmed here just with some actual cost estimates, but also by the actual sources that will be repaying for them. So anything you kind of see split out in these columns of water, sewer, stormwater, or TID, those are the portions of those projects being allocated to those individual revenue streams. There's also a number of consultants and outside third parties that are required and necessary to issue debt, and we put those in as estimated cost of issuances. There's an Ellers fee. The village uses Quarles and Brady as both bond and disclosure counsel in this process, and so their fees are there. The rating agency and the paying agent. The village uses Associated Trust as a paying agent for all of the village's debt. And then that underwriter's discount is kind of that spread I was talking about before. Additionally, we account for some temporary investment earnings, meaning you're going to receive all this money on July 11th or on June 11th, but you may not be ready to pay the bills or to execute some of the projects until later in the year. We account for some temporary investment earnings, and we actually apply those to downsize what we're going to borrow and borrow less. So that, again, we're not over issuing and we're taking into account what we're planning on in investing those. So we have about 3 months of temporary investment earnings at 4%. And that's kind of how we get down to that 7,665 number. Just kind of wanted to walk you through those issuance expenses and how the methodology works to get to that point. This is quite the graph, but this shows out by project or by funding source, the allocation of the debt and the maturities per year. All of the outside sources aren't pledged or are pledged by the revenues of the sources, but the capital projects portion is the portion that will be paid for by your property tax levy on an annual basis. So we really fluctuated that to get an understanding. We wanted to kind of smooth out the impact on the debt service levy, and we'll walk through kind of why you may have some questions on what the debt service levy will be in future years. But then also getting an understanding that we wanted to be cognizant of all the other revenue sources and ensuring that the revenues were available in those years to pay for the debt. And let me go to my next one. We like to get an understanding of what this impact is going to be. And so moving left to right in table 3 is an understanding of how the current village currently stands as far as their debt profile. And what their obligations are before we add in this new debt. And so in 2025, the village had or will have about $8.5 million in total principal and interest payments to be made. Of that, there's portions being paid for by water, sewer, stormwater, and TIDs 2, 3, and 4. And we get to that net debt service levy of $2.7 million. So that is what the village actually levied to pay debt. And that's what is allocated to the property tax, but knowing that the total debt payments are $8.5 million being offset by those other revenue sources. In the TID out equalized value, that's an equalized value tax rate of $1.56 per thousand. And that is this consistent methodology used from 25 through 35. We then model this as to what will the impact be on the property tax levy adding this debt. And so adding this debt in 2026 will contain a principal and interest payment of just over $1 million. Of that, portions are paid for by the water, sewer, stormwater, and TIDs 5, 6, and 9. And so we get to what the net debt service levy will be in 2026. It shows us quite a jump, 1.2 million, and then backs down and jumps back up. The village has a number of balloon payments coming up, specifically in 2026 and in 2028 that have been planned for, and there is cash reserves on hand to pay for those balloon payments. So understanding that these spikes will be mitigated by cash on hand and are not necessarily indicative of what the actual property tax levy will be in those for debt service in those specific years. But if we, for some reason, did need to levy for that, that would be a $2.17 debt service tax rate with an overall tax impact for over the 10 years of the life of this note of $162,000 or $162 on a $100,000 home. So overall, we're able to mitigate the impact on the taxpayer by properly allocating portions to all the other funds for their portions of the project. And like I mentioned before, we like to take a look at the debt capacity of the village, and getting an understanding where this falls. Before this issuance, the village currently utilizes 44% of their total debt capacity, and adding this in, it's a relatively small number. In the grand scheme of things, we'll put the village at just at 50% of tax GO note capacity under state law. You still will have a residual capacity of $60 million that could be issued on a general obligation basis. And that increases annually as all of the village's debt is structured to mature in 10 years. So every 10 years, those notes are being paid off in full. This is a very good utilization limit. We don't like to start, we get concerned when we get in the 75% range of utilization of debt. And so there's still significant capacity of the village to take on projects regardless of repayment source. I want to touch a little bit on the current market conditions. This was included in your packet as of when this report was put together at the end of March. And obviously a lot has happened in the market since then. Within the last 2 weeks, the municipal bond market has taken the brunt of the volatility due to tariff news. And the reason why that is because municipal bonds to investors are very illiquid. You can't just come back to the village and say, I want my money and I want it now. And so they're not very cashable type of securities. And so we've seen some significant variance on day-to-day and actually hour-to-hour basis of what municipal bonds are selling in the public market. Thankfully, today, we saw some calm come back to the municipal market, but we have been postponing and rescheduling sales for our clients over last week and this week, specifically because of the interest rate environment. And so when this was put together, we were in the kind of 4.15 interest rate market. And as of 11 a.m. today, we were only at 4.2. And so on a 10-year basis, we still think our structural considerations for the parameters and knowing that we're not selling this until the end of May, we'll be able to kind of wade through this market volatility, let the market in the municipal bond area correct itself. And I don't think we're going to have any significant issues. But if we get to the week of sale and we're still in a very volatile market, that's when our team will consult with the village staff to determine on whether it's best to postpone or to move forward with the sale. We do have clients doing both right now, but 10-year notes of this size are very, very attractive on the municipal bond market. And so traditionally the village receives very competitive bids and a number of them. And so I'm less concerned than I would be if these were on a 20-year basis. So yeah, 20-year notes are at 4.2% as of 11 a.m. today, and 10-year notes were at 3.47. So still very favorable interest rate environment on the short end, but just wanted to make everyone fully aware that there is some extreme market volatility going on last week and this week. And we saw things calm down today. The markets at close yesterday were 4.29, and now we're at 4.2 as of 11 a.m. So we're hoping the waves are calming in the market, but those will be decisions that we can make along with those staff in May if we need to postpone the sale or not. So I am happy to answer any questions there may be.
Lots of information. I would ask if there are any questions. Rebecca.
Just one. And all of that, I missed the one number that I really needed to know. What's the amount that we're looking to borrow?
$7,665,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions for Kayla? Kayla, that was a very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Making us feel confident in all this volatility that's out there. So thank you. Okay. We got a lot of information. Carol, do you need or want to add anything else for this group?
No, I will just point out, as Judd mentioned, we apparently have just received news that there was a grant awarded. So we're going to have to obviously factor that in and figure out how that may ultimately change things. But as I said, we delayed borrowing for some things that were going to happen in the TIF district. So it may just end up being that we won't need to borrow later in the year as things happen as the year goes on. So we'll figure out what we're going to do with the news that we just got and how that may impact things. But
what was the amount of the grant?
It's $1.7 million.
It was significant. Thank you.
Get DOT to give us the way to work through it, but we're working there.
Bill.
Yeah, the caveat with that is it is a federal grant, so we need to be aware, since we're spending the money now, we may find out later that the monies are not there. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, we will. All right. All right, and our action on this is how?
It's coming at a later point.
In a later point. Okay, I was just trying to pull that up. All right, well then we will thank you, Kayla, and we will move on the agenda, and we will be back to this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, then we'll move to old business discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-041, resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a development agreement with Cobblestone Hotel Development LLC.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We're clean. Yeah, she was quicker this time. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or comment? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. All right, new business. We have item 9.1, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-036, a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale not to exceed 7,665, 7,665,000 general obligation. This relates to the presentation we just had from Ellers.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Colleen. Do we have a second?
I'll second, but I do have some questions.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I would open it for discussion. You want to ask your question, Rebecca?
Yeah, please. Can you, so I'm looking at the 2 pages you gave us. Can you better tie those into what this money would be covering? Because it's a little confusing.
yeah, so if you look at the, there was a graph she showed that had the the projects listed, and then it had all the fees and things that were basically building up to the 7.6 million. That initial top part of the chart matches the 7.5 million. Okay, not that one, on the other page.
This one?
Yeah, so the first page you were just looking at was back from the budget several
Okay.
months ago.
So this one is not.
Yeah, the shorter list here now is the updated numbers and takes out a couple of projects that we weren't quite ready to borrow for yet. So this is the one that gets us to the 7.5 million. And then when
Okay.
you add all the fees in, it came to the 7.6 million. that we're
Okay,
actually
and
gonna
then
borrow.
following up related to that grant that was approved, but who knows if the money's actually going to be there. I know you said you were thinking you're going to have to at least look at the numbers, see if we need to adjust anything. Do you anticipate it? Because I noticed there is a couple things here that are delayed.
Yep.
And those were things you were thinking maybe we might need to borrow a little bit later in the year for.
Right, if those projects move forward quickly enough that
Okay.
we want to keep going with those yet this year, that would be something we might choose to borrow for later in the year.
Okay. And I'm assuming that we'll still keep those as delayed even with the potential grant funds, is that correct? Making sure that the projects are actually going to move forward.
Yeah, so the projects that show up in Carol's graph here or chart that shows delayed, those are specifically related to public infrastructure projects for development in tax increment district number 9.
Okay.
So as the strategy is there, we want to have, or in this case, required to have development agreements in place before we actually go out and construct or bid the road, and thus requiring the financing for that construction. So we're not there yet. We're working through that process currently. And we expect to have a answer here later in the year. If we get pushed to the fall and we're not able to bid those projects, obviously then those projects shift to next year.
Okay.
We had them in the capital improvement plan to provide us the ability to be budgeted for them in case we needed it. But as you know, with capital improvement plans, those things do shift.
Okay. Thank you. I think that answered my questions. I appreciate it.
Other questions? Okay, if not, we have a motion and a second. I would ask all those in favor to signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Okay. Thank you, Carol. All right. 9.2, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-042, resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute an infrastructure development agreement with Fred DeForest HC LLC, supporting construction of the Terrapin Run residential development. And wherever we see Mark tonight, I don't think he's online, it is Alex. So,
Yeah, so Mark may end up jumping on here at some point. He's at another municipal meeting, but he did provide a memo in your packets, kind of talking about the townhome style development by Fiduciary Real Estate Development that's being proposed on River Road, just south of Norway Grove Church and Cemetery. We've got a couple of representatives from the developer here in the room as well, if there's any questions. But with the substantial public improvements that are associated with this project, there you go. Our ordinance requires an infrastructure development agreement to govern the provision of those improvements. So you'll kind of see that in the packet, as well as a phasing exhibit. This is planned to be constructed in 2 phases. You can kind of see phase 1 there on the eastern portion of the site and phase 2 west. There's a parkland dedication as well as potential park improvement fees. There will be a public, can you scroll back up? Public access over a private street, pretty much dead center in the image that we're looking at here, that will be privately maintained. And then we're also having a provision for road extension assessment. So the westernmost road that is also the north-south. In phase two, that may or may not be constructed all the way to the north and southern property lines, depending on grading and some issues associated with that. And so there would be assessment to complete that if and when that does come forth in the future. So if there's any questions on the development agreement or Mark's memo, I'm happy to answer it. I think the memo also covered the second item on the agenda with the CSMs. I'll pause there.
Can I ask a question about numbering, and maybe it's just my own confusion? I see that, can you go up to the resolution? So that says 43 and the agenda says 42, so it's -043.
Can you go back to the agenda? Callie, do you know which one it actually is?
It is 4-2. That was a typo on my end when I put in the resolution, and I'll make that change.
So the resolution itself is 2025-042.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your presentation.
No, I'll take questions.
All right. Comments or questions? Yes, we'll start with Bill and then Rebecca.
Just a question on the second park. Is that between Public Street C and the interstate? Where they're talking about? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure because there's no public access.
There is public access. Yep. So Bill's got his cursor right along there. And it'll be more apparent in the CSMs that were in your packet too. There is provision of a public access easement through that section there into phase two.
Oh, okay. But there's no parking. That's the problem.
That is true. There's no parking being provided as part of this. Obviously, there's on-street parking. And I think conceptually, we've also talked about, so part of the strategy here that the developer employed is to use that as a buffer for noise ordinance requirements. And then they're doing some landscaping and berming in there as well. And that future park may continue as development continues because those dynamics in terms of noise levels off the interstate aren't going to change as you go north. So there may be an opportunity in the future to provide a public parking area farther north as development continues.
I hope that happens because that's supposed to be a major road.
Sure.
You know, in 10 years or so. All right, thanks.
Okay. Other questions, Rebecca?
I don't think this has changed really from the last time we looked at this. Is that correct? Are there any major changes in this?
It's substantially very similar to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Although it appears that the few changes we asked for have been incorporated, so. Okay, Jim.
I noted a section 7 in bike and pedestrian ways. I think that was in the developers agreement. And it's also good to see it on the map, but if you want to pull it up on I think there's a discrepancy with the concept plan and what is actually written in the section 7. As it talks about a sidewalk connection between roads A and B, which is not on the concept map.
It's not on the concept map in the agreement?
I think so.
So if it's not on the concept map in the agreement, I'll just point out that that's for illustrative purposes. So their site plan would have contained those things.
Okay. I want to make sure our motion has room to amend that stuff if they're out of whack.
Sure.
And the other concept that I want to bring up more, say to my liking, is to south. I guess it's Road A is the southern run. There's that bike or pedestrian path, the wider path that connects the Daly Road. I personally would like it to be closer to River Road and have a more standard intersection than it was. And I want to make sure that there's room for that modification if need be.
I think either Paul or Sam, can you come up? Do you guys have that in there? Again, it's hard to go off of something that's
Yeah,
not.
come on up to the
site
table
plan.
so that, You can use the mic.
Can you describe that a little bit more, Jim?
So there's the road A, and then there's a path, I believe that's a 10-foot path that connects Road A down to Daly Road. It more or less parallels River Road, but it's a little bit angular. Do you see it? Yeah. I prefer it to be more of a standard intersection, what it is, because I think that there's gonna be pedestrians probably crossing at Daly is my concern.
Oh, you're talking farther south at Daly and not at Public Road A.
Right there, yeah. Right now, the path is connecting, I'll say, quite a bit to the west, where I think it'd be better to be, say, connected similar the way it is connected at Road A, where it's, you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I do see where you're getting at. Do you recall why that decision was made to go that way?
Okay. Hi, Paul Schmitter with Fiduciary Real Estate Development, 789 North Water Street, Milwaukee. Yeah, I remember a lot of conversations about that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a question as to, once we cross River Road, is there something to connect there? Is there a path there?
There is a path there.
I know we had discussions about moving that and there was a reason. Oh, looks like Magic Mark is online now.
Hey, Mark, do you want to comment? Wait, we got to unmute you.
I can maybe fill in for Mark. I'll say
There
there's
you
a
go,
path
Mark.
there, but I believe it's private, so. Go ahead,
Yes,
Mark.
thank you, and I'm sorry for participating this way, but the path on the east side, there is no longer a ramp to with the reconstruction of River Road, so it's curb and gutter the full extent, and there is what I will call a very poorly kept path along the back side of the Woods Glen Court lots there. That path we determined 2-3 years ago to be a private path, maintained or not, as the case may be, by the Woods Glen homeowners. So the actual way to get to the Upper Yahara River Trail in this area is to go down Woods Glen Court, either on the street or on the sidewalk. And at the end of that, there is a public pathway that will get you to the system. So, you know, the path that Jim was describing, and Jim, you obviously mentioned this before, could intersect with River Road at a, 90-degree angle, as you're, I think, advocating. But it doesn't connect to a public ramp on the other side or a public path on the other side.
Jim, does that answer your question?
That answers the question. I don't know if it was necessarily a complete question. I just want to make sure. I personally feel that it'd be more advantageous to be a standard layout than what it's currently shown. I would continue to advocate for that, and I just want to make sure the developer agreement would allow for that change if it would change.
Absolutely, it would.
As it's written now, Mark?
The development agreement doesn't get to that level of specificity, so the engineering plans, could change.
Thank you.
And the only other thing, sorry, this still stay on the table, but I saw different things where it was called Rivers Bend, and I also saw Terrapin Run, and I've seen it mentioned as both. So as long as we have the ability to change whatever name of the subdivision is going to be or development will be.
Okay. Got it. Anybody else? I'm excited to see it get to this point, though. This is good.
As we are also.
All right. So we have, we don't have a motion on this one yet, I don't think. No. So
Motion to approve.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that one.
The motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
We
If
need
not,
to include the change to the resolution title or no? In the motion? It should be 2025-042.
can we add that to your motion?
Yes.
Okay,
Accept it.
okay. Can you do that, Callie? All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing with us.
Thank you.
All right. Item 9.3, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-015, an ordinance approving certified survey maps dividing into 7 lots, 7 outlots, and public rights of way, the 47.3 acre parcels as specified by the number specified west of River Road and east of Interstate 39, 90, 94, Terrapin Run. Okay. So with that, we had information and the exhibits in our packet. There we go. So we're essentially taking all of these separate 7 lots and bringing them together. Or dividing into 7 lots. I'm sorry, just the opposite of what I said. I apologize. I caught that right away as it came out of my mouth.
Mark has his hand raised.
Mark, you have your hand up.
Yes, I can be brief, but this has the effect of subdividing the Fred property into lots for building development for their townhomes and stacked flats, into public street rights of way to access the various components of the development, and into outlots for stormwater management, and notably 2 public parks. 1 public park on the east side, about 3 acres in size for active recreational uses yet to be determined, and a second public park between the housing and the interstate of about 4.5 acres likely for more passive recreational opportunities, still yet to be determined. And those both will be subject to a park master planning process in the future. So the combination of the 6 certified survey maps, if recorded in the right sequence, and I think we're comfortable knowing what the sequence is, will together look like what looks like a subdivision plat when it's all said and done, with these various lots and outlots and public rights of way dedicated on them in an orderly way.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions? Rebecca?
I want to make sure I know what I'm voting on here. Are we voting on the development agreement, or are we voting on the CSM? That's all we're voting on at this point in time?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jim?
Can I ask the potential future of Daly Road? Because what I want to bring up, if you can bring it up on the map, is that we're not showing like radius returns on Daly Road, and maybe you scroll down a little bit. Arc between the 470 foot and the 345.
Jim, if I could answer that question. We don't, and I thought you were going to talk about the point to the north point of Outlot 1, and I realized that maybe that's not your point, so to speak. There are some conditions of approval that require that northern point of Outlot 1 to be, have a radius added to it. It hasn't been done yet, but that's part of the approval condition. But it doesn't talk on the existing portions of Daly Road. The future of that section of Daly Road, right now it serves as a de facto driveway to a couple of residences at the end of it. It doesn't presently have any future plan to be anything more. And the intersection, as you can tell with the public's River Road, is not at a right angle or close to it. And furthermore, it's very close to the Woods Glen Court Road A intersection, closer than we would otherwise want it along a collector street. So while the future hasn't been solidified, the best long range plan for Daly Road is that it either continues to serve its own current sleepy function, or when that sleepy function kind of disappears, or its purpose disappears, that the road disappears as a public street.
That answer your question?
Yes, that answers my question. My concern is the road gets pretty tight to that one angle point, but as long as we're not, say, re-improving that or reconstructing that, I think I'm okay with the angle point.
Thank you. Bill Chang.
Yeah, I think Mark can correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you look at the official map with future streets, we have the north-south west road connecting through to the parcel below, that's south of this parcel. And then we have actually a section of Daly Road crossing over the interstate to the other side of where Hickory Lane is. So I think the intention is to, when the properties to the south develop, is to remove the access off of Daly Road. That makes sense.
Okay. Other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. All right. Item 9.4. Discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-043, a resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a development agreement with BJS Design to build for development of Hidden Valley condominiums. Before we start, I'm checking the number.
The last problem was the order of things got moved around a couple of times while I was doing the agenda. And I missed changing the resolution number on that one document.
Okay, but this one is right.
Correct.
That's why I'm checking, just because there was, okay. All right, so information was in your packet. And we have Mark's name next to it. Do we want to entertain a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Do we have questions? Mark, do you have any comments you want to make?
No, I'm fine to answer questions if you have them.
Okay. All right, if there, Rebecca, almost.
We almost got past. Just a quick question. Is this tied to the one we were just talking about across? So this is a totally separate, okay, different developers, okay. So it's going to be a little U-shape and then a little cul-de-sac, basically. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how many townhomes is that?
I believe there's 34 in this development, 34 units across 17 buildings.
And I guess my only other question, because I'm assuming this has been through P and Z and stuff like that, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Have we had discussions with neighbors in the area yet about this particular one? I know we've had discussions about the one across the way.
No, this development doesn't have many neighbors. Directly across the street is the preschool, Little Vienna, or what it's called, and then it's all either
ABS.
environmental corridor or ABS around it.
Thank you. Yeah, as soon as you said the little Vienna place, that made better sense where this was at. Because I was struggling figuring out exactly where it was. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Jim?
I guess I just want a little bit more comfort because I see that the wetland delineation needs to be redone, and I'm worried about how that may change and how much it might change this layout. Do we have provisions in there, or would it just come back to do a revision if it gets bad enough?
Well, the worst case scenario, Jim, is that the wetland redelineation will affect the final development plan that P and Z approved, and it would have to come back to P and Z for reapproval. The ecologist that the developer has hired does not anticipate any growth in the wetland from when it was last delineated, over a decade ago, from what you see on the screen here. But they could not do a delineation until there was vegetation coming up. And so we got a little timing issue, but there is clearly provisions in the plat approval and the final development approval to make sure that that wetland delineation happens before development can occur here.
Okay, thank you. And I thank you for the comfort level of that ecologist saying that it probably won't grow that much.
Okay. Are you comfortable? All right. Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. 9.5, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-016, an ordinance approving preliminary and final plats for the Hidden Valley plat along the east side of River Road. All right.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion or questions? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. 9.6, discussion and possible action regarding 2025-014, a resolution authorizing the village president clerk to execute a land exchange agreement with CAH Company DeForest LLC. Information was in your packet. I would entertain a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have multiple seconds. All those, do you have any questions first? Yeah, Jim.
See, there's a trail I put on F. I don't know if that was must have been an exhibit. But I'm wondering the width of the trail. I didn't see anywhere that was mentioned the width. It just mentioned following standards. Is that width mentioned in the standards?
The trail is specified in the engineering plans for Hooper, and it's a 10-foot wide paved multi-use path.
Okay. In, I'll say, continuing concern with that trail, is it shown as going over what I remember as being a spillway? So I'm wondering if they're gonna concrete that or bridge it.
That I don't know, Jim. We can certainly get that answer to you from, the project engineer or the village engineer.
I would just ask that the village engineer pretty much approve it because I'd be concerned if it's asphalt path. I think it need to be either concrete or a bridge.
I'm confused about where you think the spillway is. I'm just curious.
If you bring up it's on the south side of the large basin that's just above Peterson's.
Yeah.
Okay,
My memory is that basin spills to the south.
okay, all right,
Okay.
all right.
I don't know if it made it in the packet. I see someone hurriedly trying to find it, but there was an overall exhibit showing the
Yeah, it was
path and the
highlighted.
improvement. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me dizzy.
Hmm.
Yep, we'll answer Jim's and then we'll move to you.
I think the spillway was to the south, if I remember right. Just where it overtops the berm, but you have to get the engineering plans, but.
Okay. All right.
I hear you. So that's the emergency overflow route, Jim.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I hear the comment and I'll make sure that gets relayed on to the village engineer.
Thank you. Bill.
Yeah, I had a similar concern, but I've walked out there and it's a culvert with, I don't know, 10 feet of dirt on top of it. But I could see a problem if there's an overflow there, it's gonna go over the path. Right. I'd like to wait until, I'm gonna withdraw did I make the motion? Until we get a firm plan on what that trail is gonna consist of. How it's gonna be built. Because there's concerns if that water goes over that trail, it's gonna wash it out. At the overflow there.
All right, so. Jim.
So I think I heard that the motion was withdrawn. I guess I would make a motion to approve and add a point that would be taken into account or approved by the village engineer.
Can we just step back? I heard a motion being withdrawn. I didn't hear the second withdraw.
Right, we have to withdraw the second and then redo the whole thing. So is the second withdrawn?
Did I?
Yeah, it was you.
Okay, so then
You can withdraw and then remake a motion.
Or you could move to amend.
I'll make a motion. And it's the motion as it's shown with the addition of the village engineer to approve the trail crossing or the spillway location. Does that make sense? I probably could have worded that better, but
Sure.
Alan, looks like you want to say something.
Are you okay with that, Al, or?
All right. We'll call that a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor to add a condition that the village engineer approve the design of the trail at the location of the spillway.
Okay.
I'm good with that wording. I just don't know if it's an amendment because I thought the motion was taken off the floor.
Well, in order for you to make a new motion, you have to withdraw your second of the original motion,
I
which.
did.
He did.
Okay. All I heard was that you were making a new motion. So, all right. So then the new motion is to approve the resolution on the condition that the village engineer review the plans and approve the plans for the trail at the location of that spillway.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is everybody comfortable? They know what we're voting on? Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9.7, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 2025-017, an ordinance approving a rezoning and a certified survey map associated with a land exchange between CAH Company DeForest LLC and the Village of DeForest along the east side of Peterson Crossing Boulevard, Village of DeForest, Dane County, Wisconsin. All right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9.8, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-045. A resolution, authorizing the village administrator, to grant a stormwater drainage easement or over a portion of outlot 11 Fox Hill Estates replat. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or information? Yes, Rebecca.
I'm just wanting to make sure I'm understanding exactly what this is. If Mark could better explain it to me.
Well, I believe there's a private outlet for their stormwater that goes over the top of the village's public outlet that's shown in aqua on this map. And so this would be an easement for Hooper to continue to use that for drainage purposes.
So it's not actually, they're not going to be developing. It's just so that the stormwater can continue to do what it needs to do.
That's my understanding. If anyone else in the room would care to clarify, that would be fine too.
Alex or Bill? Or Al?
Yeah, it's just continuing the drainage pattern that exists now, draining from their property over to the detention basin with the village's public outlet being in between.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. If there's no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 9.9, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-046, a resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a limited collateral assignment of development agreement and facility bond for DeForest Yards development. There was information in your packet. I would entertain a motion to approve. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and I would entertain questions or information. If there are no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh.
Motion carries. Item 9.10, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 2025-047, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the Village of DeForest and the DeForest Lions Club, Inc. for operations of the beer tent during the 2025 Independence Day celebration.
Motion to approve.
Discussion and vote. Okay, thank you. Did you catch that? Tashidra will be abstaining. And we had a motion by Bill, okay?
Second by me.
And a second by, okay, thank you. Is there any question or discussion? If not, oh, Jim, I'm sorry.
I just want to bring it up for discussion. I think I'm okay with it, but there was I want to say 30% of the proceeds is going to the Lions Club. Yeah. At some point, I don't know, it just seems high, but I also know that it's a good organization and will hopefully be used in good or for the village too, so.
I believe they do pretty amazing work. So I've been very supportive. And they're not doing a chicken dinner this time?
Correct. They are not doing the chicken dinner this year.
So,
And this is the same model that we use for the athletic complex as well. We do a 70-30 split.
okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 9.11. Discussion and possible action regarding a resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a development agreement with Fred DeForest LLC. The village board may convene into closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statutes 19.851E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, the village board may reconvene in open session and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. And I would note this is a test of our new system. And so if we don't oppose or want to renegotiate anything in the agreement, then we don't have to go, or we do have to go into closed session. If we don't have any changes, we're okay. Rebecca?
I just have one question before I decide if I'm needing to go into closed. From my reading of the memo, it appears that they've actually lowered the amount that they've requested. Is that correct?
I can give a little overview if it's helpful, but yes, that's correct.
It says the initial request for funding was in the amount of 2,000,001, and now they're saying that not to exceed 1.98.
That's correct.
Okay, so it is a little bit lower than what it was initially.
Slightly, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So with that, if we're good with the agreement, I'm looking at everybody. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? If not, all those in agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Well, that's a test of our new system, so we're getting there. I think we're a little hesitant, but I appreciate your patience. 10.1, check register was in your packet, committee, commission, and board reports. We'll go through our updates, our update regarding DeForest area, a library. Okay, DeForest Public Safety Commission,
Our meeting was canceled.
DeForest Area Community and Senior Center. Jan's gone. Community Development Authority. You,
I'm trying to find the meeting agenda myself. Neither of you remember what we did? Let me, we approved a couple of agreements pertaining to the project, a reimbursement agreement with McGann Construction, an agreement with Foley and Lardner LLP, had a little update on the project, and I think that was about it.
and we were very pleased to hear that things were going well with Attic Angels, and our end of the year financial reports look good, and they haven't always looked so good. So we're making progress, and we appreciate that.
Oh, and the WEDC grant, sorry.
Right. Yep, we announced the WEDC grant. Public Services Commission, oh wait, Planning and Zoning Commission first.
Planning and zoning, I was not at that commission, so Lena and Colleen. My memory of that is pretty much everything that's been on that commission has now been in front of the village board.
Yeah.
That is correct.
All right. All right. All right, thank you. And the Public Services Committee?
I believe that was canceled.
All right.
No? Oh, sorry then.
We talked about the park concepts that we're working on. And then we also talked about the Park and Connect and the finalized dates for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
That's all right. It just goes over your head sometimes when there's a lot going on. DeForest Windsor Fire and EMS District. We met and it was pretty much, we were looking at financial things, and I don't know that there was a lot on the agenda that was out of the ordinary. It was pretty much a standard agenda. Would you agree with that?
I would just mention that there was an $80,000 grant through the state that the fire department got, which will pay for new radios for the trucks that need to be updated to the megahertz
Right,
standard.
which was a great thing. And this is a good year for that to have happened. So, I would also note, that committee, commission, and board minutes were in your packet. I don't, on the Danes County Cities and Villages update next, on May 14th, or next week? May 14th, I think is, yeah, May 14th is the annual meeting. Everybody should have received an invitation if you wish to go. You might want to send in an RSVP. And then in your packet, there was a memo on committee appointments. There were some changes to, for some of us. And I think I've talked to most of you about changes. The one change that I didn't talk with, we'll go through them, but the, Bill, we moved you to library.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I know, that's where you like to be, so. The other thing I will note, is that there's a recommendation for the Public Services Committee to, kind of meet as needed and quarterly, and/or quarterly, whatever they decide. And Jan has agreed to chair that committee. We've moved Tashidra to that committee, and Jim is going to serve as an alternate. So thank you for agreeing to that. And sure.
I'm on that committee and we will meet next Monday, correct? Would I still be on that?
May 1 date, so yeah, I mean, you can choose not to go.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, I'm still on the committee.
And
I'd like to go to meetings. Thanks.
until May 1,
Okay, that's, yeah.
okay?
Just a correction, it should say the 26, 27 is the wrong date after my name.
What memo are you talking? What board are you talking about? Those are a 2-year term. They coincide with your trustee term, but the way that the terms were set up, my understanding is that they're all 2-year. Is that?
I'm just, the number, if it, you can leave it, I don't.
Well, I think what she's saying is when your term's up, it's up, but if it's a 2-year term, they're just putting them all on.
Actually, I think she does. With the Public Services Commission, the trustee members serve during their current term as trustee. So if trustee Allen is up for reelection next year, she would have a 1-year term.
Okay. I think those were some of the major changes. Greg gets to be weed commissioner and Judd gets to be urban forester once again. There must be a song about that somewhere, Judd. All right, were there other questions? I think all of your appointments stayed the same, Rebecca.
I was very happy about that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's things on that CDA I'm really passionate about, so.
All right, Jim?
I want to bring up one person, Maureen, you mentioned, and I'm wondering how much time she has to devote to the forest. And I'm also a bit concerned about a potential conflict of interest. And I'm wondering if we could get a legal opinion on that, just because of funding our campaign. Is that a concern of ours? That there's been trustees and different other people that have contributed to her campaign. And then to have her as a person on the ethics committee, I'm concerned about that.
I actually had that same concern too.
So you're asking whether it's a conflict for somebody to sit on the ethics committee if they've received campaign contributions?
Yes.
The answer would be no. Not a legal conflict.
So.
Have you, sorry, the additional question, have you talked to Maureen to make sure that she has the time available?
And the thing with the ethics committee is they haven't met for a long time and they don't meet unless there's a reason to meet. So I talked to her and she said she was willing to continue. So, yes, Rebecca.
I'm going to piggyback on what you were talking about with the potential conflict. I'm not saying there is a conflict. I'm just concerned about the potential of a conflict. In the very off chance an ethics complaint were to arise against a trustee for which she had contributed or who they had contributed to her. And I think that's where the question is coming in as to a potential conflict. I'm not expecting an ethics complaint. I'm just saying if one were to arise. And I think that's where the question is coming from.
Yeah, I guess the only answer I can give you is that people who have received campaign contributions sit on all kinds of committees and commissions in the village. Abby Lowry, for example, is on the ethics committee and she received, I'm sure, campaign contributions when she was running for village board or state assembly. I don't know if that would disqualify her, but what I'm saying is legally, that's not a
Okay.
conflict.
And I think that was the only question that really there was any question about. And if there is no legal conflict, then that's fine.
Okay. And I also note on ethics that Dixon Gons has agreed to take over as the serving attorney. Mr. Grimmer, did I get his name wrong? Yeah, has been doing that for a lot of years and just has gotten to a point health-wise where he's ready to not do it anymore. So we appreciate someone being willing to give their time. So going through one other one, Jean Manchesky has agreed to come to CDA. And that will fill one of those chairs. So the other thing I will note is there are some more appointments that have to be made. And so once we approve this, then next meeting, I hope to be able to have the rest of them as Jim's been very helpful in helping me find some people and it just takes time to get answers. So we will have a few more next time. So.
You need a motion?
I do, Rebecca.
I will move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I think unless there's other business to come before this body, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 38 p.m.